Well, knife people. Welcome to another exciting episode. I know it's been a little while. As I promised, these would not be on a regular release basis, but apparently I have excelled in that area more than I anticipated. This evening, it is myself, Gary Creeley, and Douglas P. Chapman from Mifflinburg, Pennsylvania. Good evening. I am live from Macungie, Pennsylvania. So today, I think we're going to have some fun. We are going to take a look at the Dutch Bushcraft Knives Folklore Beast video they did. This is a reaction video to their video, and I just think it's a lot of fun. My wife is from Romania, so we spent some time in Europe, and flights within Romania are relatively cheap, like $150, $120. And so I flew over to Holland and hand delivered the knife to them and spent a nice evening with Martin. Mickey wasn't around at that particular time, but spent it with Martin and partner. So let's check this video out and see what we think and go from there. Let's start it out. So the format of this will be, we'll pause it now and again and comment on things we find interesting. Here it goes. You have anything to add to that, Doug?
Not a whole lot. Just enjoy the video, and we will discuss some of the knife maker viewpoints of what is happening on screen and what the knife is doing and some of the reason why that may be happening from the producing the knife side of things.
All right. And for those of you who do not know, Doug does a lot of grinding. If you have one of my knives, there's a good chance Doug ground it. That's for the ones we grind, which is the Folklores, the Omnivores. I grind some, Doug grinds more. I usually finish them and so on. But let's check it out.
This knife was made to be indestructible. It's made by one of the best knife makers that we know of, which just shoot it straight away. I love it. Oh my. So I did hit one on the apex that did cause a dent or a whirl, but it is much less than other knives. Just gonna start with.
Okay, so that is a pellet gun, but don't be too put down because that's a pellet gun, because high-power pellet guns actually can deliver a pretty significant shot on a blade. You saw what it did to the other knife that they shot. I don't even know what that was. But easy peasy, 86, 8670, heat treated well. That's not a problem. I mean, on the apex, that's pushing it a little bit, but let's see what he does next.
So,
Well,
hard as Batoning.
Oh, what'd you want to say?
before we get into it, let's go over some of the specs of this knife. So this
Okay.
is a 1/4-inch steel that is 0.250 inches. It is full tang with minimal skeletonizing construction, G10 scales that are bolted on, and it normally comes with a lovely leather sheath. So this is twice the thickness of the original Folklore in MagnaCut, but this was designed specifically for the Joe X YouTube channel, and we thought Dutch Bushcraft Knives would enjoy having a turn, putting it through its paces.
That's right. And that is a good point to mention that I saw Joe X's videos and I thought to myself, I could make a knife that could probably hold up to that. And so I did, and I chose 8670, which is one of the toughest carbon steels on the market. And so I really designed it around the kind of abuse Joe X would do. These guys saw that video, they were interested. And so I've got a version to them as well. But it was actually designed for the test, but it was actually, I kind of made it for Joe X test specifically.
Out on the range when I
We gotta go hard. We need a bigger piece of wood and we need a bigger baton.
These knives are the ones that you're practicing on it. Hello, never down the ocean.
Yeah?
Is it going?
Yeah. Oh, that was pretty hard. I mean, which damn it, it hurt my hand way more than the knife. The knife handle is actually really comfortable. Before we go heavier, I just want to give this a genuine batoning rating on a normal piece of wood.
It batons well because of how
So
thick it is.
because of the thickness of this knife and because of that handle, it's actually really comfortable in the hand. I think this, for the size, it's a batoning monster. I would give this 8.5, 9. So this is a very gnarly piece. Look at that grain. It is going everywhere.
And the wood is way hard.
I mean, the small one is available in the DBK shop, but the big one also. Look at that. That is what an 8.5 looks like on a big fire stool. Look at this. It's like New Year's Eve. So we're definitely not done with destruction yet, but I think this knife would also be a pretty good daily user. So just make a fire. Even with the damaged edge, make it still really good. I mean, he gave it a micro convex, secondary convex. This is just feather sticking. That's 7.5, 8. That's really good. It's really good. The masterpiece of birch-eye baton had birch bark, which is actually a really good way of making fire because it contains natural oils, which burn for a very long time, actually. Oh, there we go. Oh, light this bigger piece of birch bark.
Yeah.
Look at that go. It's like a candle. So this is actually also a bushcraft knife on steroids. So it should be able to do the bushcraft test also on steroids. Let's make a 10-pack.
You gotta shout steroid when you hit it.
Oh, sorry.
Let's upgrade that baton.
So he makes a point there that I think is not, not to be missed, which is it's a bushcraft knife. It is a reasonable knife. Like you can actually do bushcraft with it. It's a bit thicker than you would typically want, but it's not absolutely insane, crazy, silly. It's just a little thicker.
It actually speaks really well to the Morris Kohansky definition of a survival knife, which is a pry bar that worked wood really, really well.
Yes, that would qualify. That would qualify.
That went very easy. I didn't even hit it that hard. Just sliced right through.
It got a tip.
Yeah, we got a tip. Okay, now we got to do some carving, which we cannot the time.
So Martin, what are you gonna give this knife for carving?
Just a good old 7.5.
7.5 is high. Yeah. That if you give the knife.
Okay, 7.
Okay.
But
That's really Martin.
it does feel like a good bushcraft. It's not that different from a woodlore type of knife.
The crazy thing about this DBK Folklore Beast knife is that it might be the toughest knife out there, but could still be a real bushcrafting knife.
This knife was not designed for edge retention, but let's see what it does.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
And that's with a bent piece of damaged sharp edge.
Let's see if it can still shave. Still shaves.
Wow.
Pretty easily. Now let's continue our destruction.
Wait, oh yeah, put on the glasses.
That's
the
no
thickest
trouble.
thing you can find. Oh, again, one as thick as my mama.
Well, severe error tip test.
Oh,
The funny thing is, the tip chipped, but it's still on there. This
I mean, a lot of knives would struggle doing that. I mean, there's steel in there in the middle.
look, this is actual steel.
It is. Yeah, so then we have the pen, and then there's this steel plate in the middle that we also went through a little bit. Just some small fractures on the edge. There's nothing. So let's step it up a notch again. This is a real, listen, there's a real steel beam. Ready?
Yeah. Wow, finally.
So it's not invincible. I'm happy to see that. But this is insane. I mean, there are not many knives we have done this with, and we have seen knives that we've done this with like chips like this, like have the blade gone.
Yeah.
This is pretty insane.
Martin,
I could still sharpen this out.
440 and
yeah, dude. Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah. Oh, we did it.
Wait, let me try and stand. Yeah?
Yeah. Settle it. Oh.
Wait.
if you tried that with like a K-bar or something, that wouldn't have so well.
Oh, that was scary.
Martin, that is because you're a big boy.
Okay, and one more time on the middle.
Oh, no, Martin.
Ready?
Yeah.
Do it. That's it. That's it.
No. Martin, I can't believe it. I just didn't think this was possible for any piece of steel in the whole world. That would be steep or something.
Holy shit.
Oh, that is very impressive. No bandage?
No bandage at all. No.
You know, one of the things to talk about here, when we talk about toughness of blade steel, there's two ways in which blade steels can fail. One of those ways is that it can chip. And another one of those ways is that it can bend. With a lot of YouTube and other knife testers, they look at a chip in a much worse light than they look at a bend. But when it comes to toughness, those are both failures. If it bend now, it's fatigued steel. It won't be strong. If you bend it back, failed. Bend is a fail. A chip is a fail. Either is fails. Failures of the steel. And, you know, that metal rod they have, that was a failure on the edge. It wasn't a huge one, but I'm actually surprised it chipped as much as it did. Now, I will say this. This is a little inside baseball. I made the Folklore Beast just a little bit harder than Joe X's. Theirs is a little harder, and theirs had a little leaner edge. Joe X's, I convexed a little bit more. So that has like a micro convex on the edge versus the one that Joe X had was more convexed. And the micro convex started thicker. But this steel is so tough that I wanted to give it a little more performance and a little more edge holding. So that's sort of how I've been making them, because it's insanely tough, even with that. Even with that. I mean, the Joe X test is just off the charts in terms of intensity. Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
So when I was out in Colorado, there was a forging demonstration at the Denver Knife Show, and it was Dove Knife. I don't know if he's still doing knife making or not, but he would do a differentially heat treat blade where he would quench it, and then he would use an oxyacetylene torch to feather up and down the back and watch the colors bleed through to the cutting edge, and then quench when they were the right color, a straw color where he wanted it. And in his demo, he would then bend the knife and then straighten it. And it was able to do it because it had been softened so much in the spine. Now, that is not this thickness of steel, that is not this style of making a knife, but it can be done if you intentionally set out to do that. That is not the goal of this knife. This is supposed to stay rigid, and, you know, for the abuse they're putting through this model, it's performing very well.
Yeah. And even in that other example, that steel is still getting fatigued where it's bent. Now, it's the soft steel that's bending, and then the hardened steel is probably springing, would be my guess. So that's not actually bending, but it's the soft steel that's holding it in that bent position and then letting it up. However, you do that a few times, that soft steel gets fatigued. But it is a way to do that bend and then let it come back. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And these
think
are
of
the kinds of-
ABS test. That's one of those, is the 90-degree bend.
And this is a steel that an ABS person would work with, a master smith. This is, you know, one of those simple, it's a pretty simple, basic steel, but that doesn't mean it can't perform. And so that's what's cool about it. All right, let's see what these guys want.
And also, the handle skills are still on there firmly, even though I hit it with a hammer. So
Very impressive.
this knife deserves to get its edge back.
This is very impressive.
Then it's time for the conclusion.
Oh, we're sharp.
Yeah.
Clean taste scrub. Yeah. Okay. Nice. I love it. Martin, he made an actual convex out of the knife.
I got a
Oh,
little
yeah.
bit carried away, made it full convex, went to the sharpening stones, gave it almost a mirror. And the tip is back, but I think it is as good as new.
Yeah.
Oh, it is back to perfect.
Yeah. That's really nice.
And this knife went through a lot.
Yeah.
So that's very cool.
We gave it all we had.
Yeah. By you. The Creeley, I don't remember the name. In 860,
Folklore.
70 tough
Really
steel.
folklore, Martin.
Amazing. The first time we met Creeley, it was like, he was the first one to send us a Magna Cut knife from
Yeah.
a research batch still.
Yeah.
And it kind of blew us away. Up to this day, that has been my best Magna Cut knife. He came to my house. He's from the United States. He flew to Europe and he flew to the Netherlands to deliver this knife at my house. So he went to my house and delivered this knife to me.
Yeah.
And he told me this knife was just made and designed to be as tough as possible.
For
And you
the
know
Joe
what?
X test.
He did a very good job.
For all the people hating us right now, he basically designed this knife for this destruction test.
Exactly. Look at the handle,
No,
Mickey.
the Joe
This
X
handle
test,
shape,
but the
it has our
structure
favorite handle shape.
Coke bottle.
And that's why in this whole video, the knife felt so comfortable in my hand. Yeah, it is crazy thick, but for me, this is like,
You like it?
I like thick. Even though it is this thick, it feels very usable. For me, this was like the better version of a Becker BK2, you know,
Yeah.
like a knife on steroids.
I'm just going to be honest with you. This is probably my favorite soft knife
Whoa,
because of its functionality, and it still looks good.
sheath as well. Good quality leather sheath. Fire
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's all you need, man. I can highly recommend this knife if you want a fun knife that you can beat on. Go check out Creeley. He's a great guy. And
Good knife maker.
He's
Really,
very-
he's really
one
good
of the
knife
better
maker.
knife makers, I would say.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming to my house and giving me this knife for this video.
Thank
Have
you
a
for
nice-
dinner.
And thank you very much for
Yeah.
watching, and see you every Thursday, 1 p.m. BDT.
All right. So thank you, DBK, for checking out the knife and the video. Yeah. You know, one of the interesting things about the knife and the video is I hung out in the comments section and just, trying to get a sense of what people said. One of the comments that was pretty common, not common, but it came up quite a few times, was idea of, this knife is $350. $350 around. That's nuts. That's crazy. Who spends around? And, it was interesting. I realized that's, a big bite, that's the big piece, but this is a handmade custom knife. We're a small shop. And as these knives go, as this style knife goes in that nature, especially with that much steel. That's priced about right. That's not, and I get a lot of folks just want to buy a Mora or, you know, a $30, $50 knife. And there are some good choices out there at that price. But I mean, a Mora is a good price point knife at that point if you're not going to put it through. This illustrates you spend a little more money to get something like this. It's a little more capable. It's not to say you have to have this or, you know, a 30 or 50 or 80 or $100 knife. Couldn't get the job done because it probably could if you picked out a good one. So I just thought that was interesting. I think that came from just folks who don't go to Blade Show, you know, folks that don't go to custom knife makers often and spend most of their time in sort of the retail mass production type and expect it to be at a lower price. Now, what's interesting, and we want to do another podcast on this on another day, talk a little bit about Survive knives. And their knives are cheaper than my knives, maybe across the board 30% cheaper. Now, of course, there's a whole story to that. But long story short, you can't really, they made a good knife. You can't deliver a knife that good at that price and make enough profit to be sustainable and continue. And they kind of prove that to be true, you know, in their journey. So any other comments that you have on our friends at DBK, the DBK channel?
One point I actually sort of shivered when they started hitting the angle iron or iron rod or whatever it was, the structural steel piece they had.
I was
It's
surprised
funny.
that chipped it. I didn't think it would, but it did.
Yeah. It's funny when you put that much time into something, you have to put through that sort of test.
Yeah. Although, I mean, it was digging in and into that angle iron. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it was taking a bigger hunk out of the angle iron than it took out of itself. And I think because they were chopping it, I think essentially that impact is what made the chip. I think if they just would have put it on there and then batoned it down, I don't know that it would have chipped. I think it would have just kept going and pushing it away. But in the chop, you know, when you land, you know, you hit it, you know, and it strikes and turns a little. So yeah, that's probably what chips weren't big or they were able to sharpen them out. But yeah, that's hard.
Yes.
Yeah, that was probably the hardest thing they did. I don't think anything else they did came close to hurting it.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
the
standing
cutting
on
through
it
the
wasn't a
pan
problem.
was a little rough, but
And
it was
again,
stabbing the pan that really did the tip damage.
yeah, the stabbing of the, you know, again, it's that impact hit. Because before, when they were cutting through it, it was batoning. So it wasn't slamming and then turning. It just kind of had that straight down hit versus when you are chopping, you hit and, you know, you move to one way or the other a little bit. So I enjoyed when that, you know, a bunch of Folklore sold Beasts. They're still selling, you know, every so often people, and 12-month wait. So I suspect if they were immediately available, they probably would have sold 300. I totally understand not 3 months, 12 months to get something like that. But it's just what it takes us to get the orders out and pack them up and make them, ship them. I just ordered a few days ago 100 more Folklore Beast blanks. So I buy the steel from a steel manufacturer that has a laser cutter. I send them my design. They cut them out with the laser. They come into the shop. I check them out, and then they get heat treat. They'll go to Peter's, and we'll heat treat those. I'll heat treat it to like 61, I think is what I'm doing with that. Then it comes back. We surface grind it. Then we grind the bevel. Usually that's the part you do. Bevels get ground. I pick them back up. They come to my shop. I put the scales on. Then I got to clean up the whole perimeter and grind it flush to the scales. And then also I put a little choil in them. When you grind a edge, this is a little hard to see, but when you grind an edge like this, it's almost impossible to land exactly on. You usually start working your way up just a little bit. So I put a little bit of choil in here to give a little room for sharpening so it doesn't start climbing up the knife immediately when you sharpen it. You have a lot of years of use on that. I just had a customer say, is it convex? Is it a convex edge because it only strop? And I told, yeah, it has a micro convex on it, but even if you only strop, eventually, if that's what you do, it will become convex anyway, But yeah, so that's how they're made. Yeah, we got 100 more coming in. We're actually almost out of those blanks. So the way I've been produced, if somebody listening has a knife in. So we worked on Folklore Magna Cuts for several months, got those sort of caught up. Then we worked on Folklore Beast for several months. We got those fairly well caught up. Now we're working on Omnivores. We got to get those caught up. And then we'll circle back around to the Beasts. So those are the 3 knives that we're sort of making right now in the Makos. And there's another knife that I'm working on called a Minnow, which is a small version of a Mako, only about, exactly how big. Do you have one of those over there?
I do. Would you like to see it?
Sure. I think that I'm excited for this. For those who don't know, do you have a Mako to put up against it? It's really a capital intensive thing to bring out a new model. The 2 Folklores I have are kind of the same model in 2 different steels, so they use the same handles, same sheaths, so on and so forth. But a new model like this, I'm going to need a new sheath. For that, it'll be Kydex. I'm going to need new scales. But yeah, this is the Minnow. Could be a neck knife or just a pocket knife. Put in the Kydex, throw it in your pocket. It's grainy. Treat the knife. Huh? But yeah, it's a good bit smaller than a Mako, but it's still handle heavy in terms. You can get 3 fingers on there pretty good. It has a lot of similarities to the Mako, but it's just a neat little carry around. It's a cool little knife. So that's what's coming up. That's, I think this can be a wrap for us. This one's a little bit shorter, half an hour. Paul wasn't able to make it with us. I don't know if he was on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land or a pilgrimage to Five Guys, or maybe he wasn't on a pilgrimage. Anything else you want to add, Doug?
The only other thing I was thinking of while watching the video was the initial tip test in the wooden board. So a lot of folks would say that is again, exaggerated use of a knife. But if you are carving a shuttle to do net making, that is one way you're going to remove the waste wood. There's a needle inside the shuttle, and you have to sever the fibers and cut the profile of what you lever out the what that is. There's a for real use of bushcraft techniques for removing some waste wood in certain bushcraft tasks. So that is a exaggerated version of the test, but that is one of the measures of a bushcraft knife. Can you carve a netting needle in 10 minutes or less? Morse Kohansky says 5 minutes or less, but that one acid test that people use for if your knife can do that, it could be the cutting implement for your survival kit. Having a knife.
In reality, this knife really, the 2 prices that you're paying over, say, a Magna Cut version of it is a weight. If you're hiking a long distance, the weight is an issue. But the way a lot of guys bushcraft, they kind of get to a place and that's it. So the weight might not be a huge issue, but it is heavier because of the thickness and the lack of corrosion resistance. But otherwise, the thickness and all the other things about it, it's really not an impractical bushcraft knife. So if people really want to bushcraft it, they just want to have something fun to talk to their buddies about, I'm curious how people are using it, if it's just a novelty and it sits, or they're really working the heck out of it. It is my desire that they use their knives the way they're meant to be used. And granted, Joe X, and to a lesser degree DBK, did things that were not the way they were meant to be used. But it just gives you a sense of what the breaking point is. So there's hardly anything you're going to do to wood with that knife that's going to make it fail. I mean, you can not be afraid to dig it in, to tip in somewhere to wood or bushcrafting. So whatever it has to do with, wood products, this thing will do it. The only issue you got to watch out with corrosion. But 01 is, just as this actually has a little bit of nickel in it. That's also why it's partly the one makes it tough. And so it has a small modicum of corrosion resistance because of that, as compared to, say, 1095. Yeah, 01 has a couple other alloying elements, so it'll probably be similar to 01 in that regard. But guys, take care of their knives, keep them oiled, keep them dry, and they'll be fine. And if it isn't, just brush it, sand it off, get Scotch-Brite, do it, whatever, and it'll be right back to where it was. Cool. Well, thank you, folks, for tuning in, and this concludes this evening's podcast. I look forward to the next one. Not sure what it's, but we will be back in with something interesting for sure. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see